Well, off. Okay, so we're still in Fremantle. Who do we have here?
Alex Nicol.
Alex. Now, you used to work for the federal government.
I did, yeah, for 7 years.
Doing what?
I was policy advisor for a Liberal Party senator.
Okay. And you were saying about you working with the windmills?
Yeah, so the area that I was working in was renewable energy. And basically, it was my job to uncover a lot of the stuff that was going on with the Renewable Energy Act, which was put in 2002 under the Howard government. So that was the Liberal Party put the act in place, and I was looking at the mess that it had created. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the Renewable Energy Act creates a subsidy environment where if you build wind turbines, you're paid between $600,000 and $900,000 per turbine per year as a subsidy alone.
Well, if it's on your property.
No. So what happens is the wind company comes in and leases, they pay a lease to the farmer to build the wind turbines, and that in effect makes sure that the farmer is still liable for the turbine.
Okay.
And they pay a lease of $12,000 a year, usually, and the company gets paid between $600,000 and $900,000 per turbine per year.
So they pay $12,000 to the farmer, but they get $600,000
Exactly.
per turbine.
Yeah.
Which is a big incentive to put in turbines.
Yeah, and the landowner takes the liability for the turbine.
So he gets $12,000 a year, but if anything happens to it, he's got to fix it, or she's got to fix it.
Yeah, when they catch on fire,
Yeah.
they're responsible for their neighbours' properties going up in smoke. That kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And effectively that money, the subsidy that's getting paid to the wind farms, is reaming $40 billion a year out of the Australian economy. And it's paid by everyone, every pensioner, householder, schools, hospitals, everyone. It's not just out of your tax, it comes out of your power bill.
Is this why power bills are going up?
Yeah. That's why power bills.
Our power bills are going up to pay for wind turbines that don't work.
Exactly.
And why don't they work?
So they don't work because, for a start, they draw power off the grid, so they have to have coal-fired power in order to turn. They're not windmills, they're turbines. And essentially...
Sorry, what do you mean? The power to turn. So when we see them turning, that's not the wind, that's the power generator turning.
Essentially, they have to draw power off the grid, so they have to draw coal-fired power off the grid in order to turn. And what happens when the wind picks up, they do actually start to create electricity of their own, but that electricity is so intermittent and unreliable, when it gets back to the grid, it has to be balanced on the grid, which you can't do. And like with your coal-fired power station, you can't ramp your coal-fired power stations up and down. So the coal-fired power station stays at the same level because it takes 24 to 48 hours for them to get up to heat anyway, and they just let off steam as the wind comes onto the grid. So there's absolutely nothing about them that works apart from reaming that amount of money out of the Australian economy, and it's going offshore.
That money's going offshore.
Yeah, it's going
And now they're getting ready to shut down the power stations like around Traralgon.
Exactly.
So they can rely on
That's
the
why
wind.
South Australia has had so many power blackouts over the last 2 or 3 years, because as the wind has come on, you can't stabilise the grid. So the whole place has to go into blackout.
I'm pressing on. Yeah, pressing on. Well, I'm pressing on to the higher calling of my Lord. I said I'm pressing on. Pressing on. I'm pressing on.
let's move to the other story you want to talk about. Did you want to talk about your mother?
Yeah, so my mum died last Tuesday. It's just over a week ago. And
Were you close?
extremely close. She loved me very much, and I've just lost the person in the world who she just came onto my phone this morning with an old message that said, "I love you with all my heart." So I'm going to really miss her, and it was an extremely hard time. She was in a nursing home and she was admitted into Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, and they did a COVID test on her when she was non-responsive, let's put it that way. I don't know that you could say she was unconscious, but she was non-responsive, and that test came back positive. The RAT test was negative and the PCR test was positive. So from that moment she was treated as a COVID patient, and the first thing that they wanted to do was administer remdesivir. And even the World Health Organization has recommended against the use of remdesivir from July 2000.
Run, death is near.
Exactly, run, death is near. And so I began an extremely distressing time where I had to protect my mother from the hospital trying to kill her. And what I've learnt about remdesivir is that it has, in trials, it had a 54% kill rate. It increases the chance of death by 3%. And it increases the chance of renal failure by 23%. And here we are in a hospital in Perth, Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, administering it to my elderly mother. So I had to...
So they did give it to her?
No, I refused the treatment. My mother had myself and my sister as joint medical guardians, and it was an extremely difficult time because my sister is a nurse and she is medically trained, and from that point we were in disagreement about Mum's treatment, because to her remdesivir was an antiviral that was going to save my mother, and to me it was an experimental drug. And my mother was unvaccinated, so for me it wasn't a leap in logic to go, well, if Mum was refusing repetitively over a number of years an experimental vaccine, then she would also refuse an experimental drug, especially one that increases the risk of death by 3%. And to administer something that increases the risk of death is medical malpractice. So I felt that I couldn't leave her alone in the hospital at all, because they were constantly trying to administer remdesivir and also dexamethasone. I did let them give her dexamethasone at one point because I was trying to keep her alive for long enough to see our other sisters. But it was extraordinarily traumatic what we went through in the hospital, and it split our family up at a time when we should have been able to come together. And the things that I experienced, like there was a nurse outside the door at the nursing home that my mother was in that said, well, she's unvaccinated and the family has refused antivirals, so what do they think is going to happen? Within my mother's earshot. And that happened repetitively. Like the doctors in emergency got within an inch of my face to tell me that they weren't going to treat my mother and that she was going to die. And I was like, no, she's not. You are going to treat her. You're going to give her antibiotics. You're going to put her on saline, and we're going to see how she goes. And it was extremely traumatic and difficult. And you shouldn't have to, like, when you go into a hospital, you shouldn't have to fight to be keeping someone alive. It was really important to my mum that she got to say goodbye to her family. And if they hadn't treated her, she wouldn't have been able to do that. So it was an incredibly hard time. Like even the ambulance officers that picked her up, I heard them outside her door, and he was like, well, why is the family sending her to the hospital? And I was like, excuse me, I'm family. We're going to the hospital. Like, it was unbelievable how my mother was treated because she was unvaccinated. And I'm just really, really grateful to her for bringing me up to question vaccines. I didn't understand at the time what she was doing. I thought she was a bit cuckoo, But I'm extremely grateful that she brought me up that way so that when this came along, I could question what was going on.
And that's what you want to do, is question.
Yeah, you have to question everything. From understanding the way that the wind industry works in government, I could then grasp what's going on with the global agenda, because it all ties in. It's all about money and control, and the depopulation agenda is something that's extremely hard to digest, and it really hurts to see the people around us getting sick, the people that we care about, our own family. It's extremely hard to see that happening.
They're afraid of you noticing what's going on and speaking your mind and standing up, and you're sitting there thinking that you don't matter. Well, if you don't matter, then why are they spending trillions of dollars on trying to keep you quiet? Our voices matter. Our actions matter. How we live matters. And if we don't realize that we're falling into this trap,
we need to come together and do one thing: stop participating. And when we do that, the game is over. When we literally say Monday morning, we're not going to go to work. Imagine if 30 million people didn't go to work Monday. Imagine if 30 million people didn't buy gas on Monday. Imagine if 30 million people went to the bank on Monday and said, I want to withdraw all my money. They can't even give it to all 30 million because only 15% of the cash is available on hand at any given time. The rest is fake zeros and ones. That would collapse the banking system in one day. You see the power in that? You have the power. Well, we all have the power, but what's keeping us back from doing this? Fear. Oh my God, if I don't go to work, I'm going to get fired. And if they don't participate in it, and I'm the only one that doesn't show up for work, I'm going to lose out, and you're not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm not going to be able to make my car payment, and so forth and so on. You see the trap they have us in? They have us in this system where we're afraid to work together. We're afraid to be like, man, we're brothers. We should be, link up. Let's do this together. So that's where we got to get to, guys. We got to get to the point where we're literally all on the same accord, and that's going to happen. We've got to get to that point.
If we want to get our country back under our care and control here, our custody, and to remove the belligerent occupation, then all of it must go. All of it. Not this or that, but all of it. And what does that all of it mean? Well, it's parliaments, it's local councils, it's courts, it's law enforcement, it's taxation office, because all of it, according to the entire body of evidence that has been published by some of the best researching people, I think, in our family, broader family, that I've just aforementioned, they say it's belligerent, right? They say it's illegal. They say it's all fake. They say there's no common seal. They say all sorts of things, right? And they prove it.
G'day Aussies. Look, we know courage is as rare as rock and horse shit. But find something within yourself to get on and sign up for the National Strike. www.nationalstrikeaustralia.org. Let's end this belligerent occupation and take our country back and give our children a future that we want, not what they want.